Hey there, so we're on to the next stage of building our little dodgem game with the rockets. I'm going to start by showing you the end goal. So this is where we're trying to get to. We've got the space balls flying away at us, we can dodge them, but if they hit us, they tell us, bang, like that, and we lose some points. Our goal is to try and dodge all of the space balls as they fly at us, and if we are successful, we can win the game, and we'll get a win condition generated, just like that. Alright, that's the end goal. So, let's have a look at how we're going to start doing it. First thing to do is to get your old Scratch project back, which you can do by first getting onto the website scratch.mit.edu, click Start Creating, and when the loads up the canvas, the blank canvas, it'll have the tutorial which we need to delete, and then click File, Load from your computer, and find your file wherever you saved it last time. Alright, click Open, and it'll open your project up. Now, I'm going to skip back because this is actually opening up the final version of what I've already done. This is where we were, okay? Now, before we get started with each of the parts, what we need to do is make sure that we delete any extra balls that you created. So if you made 2, 3 or 4 balls on the screen, you need to delete them. The reason is because we're going to edit one of the balls so that we've got the new rule set put in place. If we do that with one ball and not the others, then only one of them will ever go by our new rules. So we need to get rid of the extra, because once we've changed the one ball, we can duplicate it to then have all the balls have the same set of instructions. Alright, now let's remind ourselves of a programming principle called OOP, which is object-oriented programming. Okay, so if you remember last week we talked about how every object in your game has to have you give it a script. This is what this is called here, scripts. Okay, think of it like a story that that object's going to read whenever you play the game. Okay, so going back to that, it's very much an experience you've had before, really. So if you were baking a cake, you know that your flour has one objective, one job, and that is to give the cake some body. The sugar is to make it sweet. The butter is to help bind it, as are the eggs. Yes, these two jobs do similar things. These two objects do similar things, but that's fine. And they all come together to make a cake, just like all your objects in your game come together to create the actual game itself. Alright, so let's have a look at this. Now, a good piece of advice for any programming you want to do is to write down what you want to do and trying to break it down into steps. So our session goals, our whole session goal is to create collision detection and then to create a win condition. So we're going to start by creating that collision detection with either the ball or the player. We want feedback too. We want to tell the player that they have collided with the ball, they've hit the ball. And then we want the ball to do something once it's hit the player. We want to add sound effects because that's kind of fun. We want to add a score because we want to make an ability to win. We need to change that score, and then we need to create the ability to win with the score that we're changing. And of course tell the player that they have won. And the final thing we want to do is to reset the game so we can just carry on and give another person a chance to play. Alright, now if we go back into our project, I'd first like to explain I'd like to give you like a visual representation of what collision detection is. So at the minute, the ball, it just flies straight past the rocket. No matter where we're going, it just flies straight past the rocket. It doesn't register anything. What we want to do is have this kind of effect. Alright, we want the ball to fly in, hit the player. Yeah, the ball might bounce off, we can do that, but realistically the bit we're focusing on is right here, the whole idea that we have got some sort of collision, okay, just around there. Right, now it's really important that we listen to ourselves as we think, okay. First off, let's get onto the ball. We're going to write this on the ball script, and we're saying to ourselves, if the ball hits the player, do something. And if you pick out those keywords, if, we've actually got if. Go to your control and you will find the if statement. If ball hits player, then do something. Now, what do we put in here? Well, if you remember from last week, we had our senses, okay? So if we go on here and we drag in key press down, sorry, we don't want that one. Key press down is no good to us because we don't want to wait for us to press a button. What we want to do is get the ball to check itself. So here we have touching, and we've got some experience of touching as well, because if you look up here we've got if touching edge, and that category exists here. We don't want mouse pointer, click down. I'll bring it up a bit so the screen doesn't hide it. We don't want mouse pointer and we don't want edge. We do want rocket ship because the rocket ship is our player. So let's put touching rocket ship into the if block. If touching the rocket ship, then do something. And this is great for our ball. We're saying to the ball, if you touch the rocket ship, we want you to do something. I would suggest right now the best thing is for us as programmers to get some feedback to know that this is working. We could call this debugging. In other words, what we're doing is we're checking that everything's flowing, everything's working, and it is the way it should be. So let's get this down here. It says, say hello. Now hello isn't really what a rock's going to do when it hits a ship. It's more like, say, something like bang. And so we're going to put that in. It's going to display it for 2 seconds before it does the next thing. I think we should make this a bit shorter. Let's make it 0.5, half a second. So, let's put this into our if statement. If you touch the rocket, then say bang for half a second. So the thing to do now is to add that in. Okay, we want to get it inside the forever loop. It has to go inside that because we want to forever check, are you touching the rocket? We don't want to call it once, we need to make sure it's happening forever and ever. Now this should work. We should find that our rock or ball flies towards us, and if it touches us, it should say bang. There we go, brilliant. Now you can see it's making this weird jolting through. And that's because it's continuously checking, am I touching, am I touching, am I touching? And then when it stops, it changes back to not. And that's because of the if statement. If you're touching, say bang. And if you're not touching, don't do this part of the script. So now we've got that, what we want to do is send the rock, after saying bang, straight back to where it started. And actually, we've already got that code. We've already got it right here. If you remember, when we touch the edge, we send it back. So we should just reuse that code. If you touch the edge, go back. If you touch the rocket ship, go back. It makes sense. So why don't we click on it, right click, duplicate, and then we've got 2 of them. Let's put one under bang and return the other. So now if it touches the edge, it should go back. And if it touches the rocket ship, after saying bang, it should go back. And as we play it, you can see it happening already. So if it touches the rocket, it goes back, and if it touches into space, as up here, you can see it just returns. This is really good. We've got a bit of a game coming on now. But why don't we have a look at our checklist to make sure we're doing what we want? We've got collision detection, we've got feedback as well, and we know what it does once it's hit the player. So why don't we add a bit more gaminess to it and add some sound effects? Well, that's quite straightforward. Click sound, and let's have a look. We've got loads of options here, but the one I would probably just go for is play sound. We could say play until done, but I think we'll just start the sound. Let's put this above. So if you touch the rocket ship, as in the ball, if the ball touches the rocket ship, play the sound, say bang, and then go back to the start. Well, let's have a look. Let's try this out. Okay, play, and then there you can see, and then if you touch it, we've got that little sound. Burst the rock. Okay? This is all looking really good so far. Now, let's go back. And this is why we create that list in case we ever say, what do we want to do next? Well, here we go. Add a score. We want to create a score that means the player can start to win this game. Let's have a look at something called variables. Variables are something you find in all programming languages. It's a really important word to understand. It comes from the word vary. Something that can vary is variable. Let's have a look at how this might work in your real life experiences. Think about a plate at dinner. Plate, spoon, knife, fork, whatever you need. It doesn't really change. You could say that every day you're going to use this stuff to eat with. So what's a variable? Well, a variable is what you're actually going to eat. Perhaps you might have fish and chips. You might have a roast dinner. you might have fajitas. These are variables. Each of these can be different on a different day. You vary what you eat. It's good for your diet. Okay? And it's much the same in programming. You can have a value that you change to suit you. It can be changed in-game, or you might decide to keep it as it is all game. And that's the beauty of it. So let's have a look at putting this into practice. To start with, we're going to have a go at making a variable. Let's type in here current score. We want to know what the current score is. Alright? And there it is, it's on our game screen as well. If we run the game, nothing's going to happen, and that's because we've given no instructions. Yes, we collide with the edge, yes, we collide with the player, but nothing's happening. We're not changing the variable. So let's have a go at how we could do that. Changing the variable. As I've just used that very language, there it is before us. We want to change the variable, literally. We want to have a condition where if the ball hits the edge, the player has dodged the ball. So let's say they've been successful and we should reward them. We should give them a point for dodging the ball. So let's have a look. We know we've dodged the ball because the ball will touch the edge and then fly back. So here it says, if touching the edge, then go back. Let's have a look. Put this in. If you touch the edge, change the current score here by 1. In other words, add 1 and then move back. Let's have a look. If it hits the edge, it should go up, but if it hits us, it shouldn't. Looking good. But what we want to do is maybe punish the player for colliding, as in you have to dodge, otherwise you're going to lose some score. We can use the exact same piece. We could drag it out, or we could duplicate. We want to change the current score, but instead of adding to it, we're going to take one off. -1. And this is why negative numbers are so important in your maths. Let's put that in. Where should we put it though? When do we want to take the score off? Well, if we put it here, under bang, what we're saying is, take a score off after you've played bang. You'll see what I mean. It's like a slight delay. Hit the player, and then the score changes. Watch again. Hit the player, then the score changes. This probably isn't the great reaction. So what we really want to do is put it above the bang sound. Take the score off immediately. Let's play again. And you'll know as soon as it hits, the score goes down. So this looks far more reactive. Brilliant. This is because in programming, your computer reads it in the order you put it. It will always start with 1, 2, 3, 4. Always. So if you mix up the order, you will confuse the computer. You must put it in the way you want it. Right. This is looking really good at the minute. Now we've got a score going, what we want to do is create that win condition. How can we tell when the player has won? Well, let's go over to the player, okay? And we're going to have a think about what we want. If the player score is better than the score to win, then we can win the game. So let's make a variable. Score to win. Okay? You'll see we've got that next variable. Now, what do we want the score to be for the player to win? Well, I think 10 is probably a good score. It's fair enough. We've dodged 10 balls, we win. So let's set not the current score, but the score to win to 10. And when should we set that score? Straight away. Not in the forever loop. It must not go in the forever loop, because otherwise you're forever setting it to 10. And there's no need to do that. Once we've set it, that's fine. In fact, we could go a bit further with that and say that with current score. Set current score to 0 when we start. Not forever, because if we set it forever, it means every time we score with the ball, this loop will set it back to 0. We'll never win that way. We have to keep it outside of the forever loop. So, current score starts at 0, score to win is 10. We know we changed the score already. How do we know we changed the score? Because the score is changing in the ball script. So all we need to do now is check if we win. And notice that word came out again, if. So let's put if on, okay? And then we want to sense if the player wins. We're not going to get this through sensing in terms of collision, we're going to get it through maths. So here we need to check. If our score is greater than 10, we win. And if we look down our operators, we've got that condition right here. Look, the greater than and less than symbols. We've even got equals. See, all that maths you've been doing is coming right into play right now. So we want the current score to be greater than the win condition. So let's have a look. We've got this here. You can see these circles. And you can see this sort of diamond shape we've got. This diamond shape is going to fit into that diamond shape. You can see it highlighted. Before we put it in though, let's go to the variables. Current score. Current score greater than score to win. We know what the score to win is. We know the current score will change if the ball touches the edge. So we should put that in. And let's have a look. If the current score is greater than 10, which is a score to win, then do something. Notice it's got to be greater than. You won't win if you score 10 because that's not greater than the score to win. What you want is 11 points or more. And we should put this at the very, very bottom. Not inside the arrow keys, because we don't want the arrow keys to be part of our checking. We just want to check the score. The only thing to check is the score. So, at this point we should tell the player, if you score more than the score to win, well, let's put in, say, in fact, let's use time for this, say, you win. Yeah, and we'll put an exclamation mark there. You can put whatever you like for a message. 2 seconds seems fair. Now let's have a go. We know that we should score 11 points or more to win the game. Let's play. Not a good start, but let's carry on. Keep dodging. You can see my current score is changing. You can also see score to win is set to 10, which is great. Keep going. You can see it increment. Remember, we won't win at 10. We need to score 11. So there we go. 10. If I crash, oh, it's gone back one. Dodge again. And then now we should see the win. And there you go. You win. Obviously it's a bit strange right now because we're still kind of playing. That ball is still flying around. So what we want to do is stop the game as soon as that happens. If you go into control, we can do just that. If you look at the bottom, we've got a stop all function. So we'll put that at the bottom. Underneath, you win. And we should have you win for 2 seconds and then everything should stop. Let's have a go. Not a good start again, but here we go. Counting up. We can also hide the score to win, just so you know. We'll do that in a second. Right, here we are. 7 points, 8, 9, 10, and here we go. You win, 2 seconds, and our player has stopped. We've got a game. That's it, we've done it. We can tidy it up a little bit, go to variables, okay, and then if you look at these tick boxes, if we untick score to win, we can take it off, and we don't have to have that anymore. We might add some other ideas like we did last week. Remember I said we could duplicate this ball, so let's do that. Have another one, we could hide that, maybe change the speed to make it a bit more challenging. I'm going to go for minus 15. Remember why it's minus 15? Because we're going backwards along the x-axis. Okay, and then we should play again. You can see it's a bit more challenging. The balls are flying a bit more randomly. It seems harder, but we can just dodge it, and eventually we'll get to the you win, and then 2 seconds later, everything stops. You might notice that these balls are still moving, so what can we do about that? Well, if we go into the if condition, we can actually recreate that over in our ball section. I'm going to just do this quickly because I think we've already done it before, but I'll go through it as I say it. So if, and then we want our operators, if something is greater than something else, so let's put that straight in. We want our variables, if our current score is, oh, and this is why it's important to check because that's not the one I want. I want this one. If current score is greater than score to win, yes, we've hidden it, but it still exists. And then I want to stop the balls. So let's go for control, and then down at the bottom of control, if I drag it down, we've got stop all, and that should be it. Let's have a look. Dodging, dodging, dodging. You can see that score is getting up. Oops. Need to get good at my own game. And then everything stops. But this spoils the illusion a little bit. So there's one last thing we can do. If we go very into looks, there's this one called hide. And we can just hide our balls, okay? Now, like I said, this is only happening in one of those scripts. So let's delete that duplicate, go back to the one that we've now set the win condition for, and then duplicate that again, put it on, and this time, when we dodge those balls, oh look, this is why it's important to play. We've hidden straight away. I have a feeling that's because the score wasn't quite set. So let's press play. Those balls are still hidden. So what we need to do is find a way of setting those balls up again. So they start by showing. So when click show, go to a random position. So let's duplicate that, put that in. Because I was hiding the ball, I need to unhide the ball. I need to show it again. So when we start the game, which is what the green flag is, start the game by showing the balls. But also I want to move the balls away from the player. Because remember, when we finished the game last time, the ball might be this side of the screen, which is no good. We've got to move it back. So I'm just using that same code. It's the third time I've used that code. Once, twice, 3 times. So when I start the game, I should find the ball, start on one side, and I can start dodging again. You might be wondering why I can only see one of them. Again, that's why we should delete the duplicates before we make changes. Let's duplicate this script again. Now it's got everything in it, and now whenever we start the game, we should go back to 0 and see those balls flying again. There they are. Alright? Great. And there we go. There we have our game. Try it out on a family member. See if they can play and see if they can win. If you go to the far right hand side, you can actually expand the screen and create a real atmosphere. Okay? If when you start your game nothing shows up the first time, click again and it will. There's a reason why that's happening. It's something to do with where we've set the numbers to 0. We need to move the score from the top of the block. I'll go here, onto the rocket ship. This set current score shouldn't be at the top. There's another place you should put it. But I'll let you work that out. Play around with it and see what you can do. And the final challenge, so that's challenge 1, the final challenge is, why don't you play around with different characters, different objects to dodge, and different backgrounds, and have some fun with it. The more you experiment, the more you'll learn. My hope is that the next session we do, we're going to have a player who's going to fire balls at enemies and try to hit them with the balls. It's like dodgeball. Alright, see you later.